Hello guys, and welcome back to another tutorial. In this video we are going to create and deploy a complete responsive personal portfolio website using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Now this website is going to be fully responsive and it is going to be fully functional. Okay, so we are going to have a fully functioning contact form. That means anyone visiting your website or any client visiting your website can actually message you through this form. Okay, so they can enter their name, email, subject, message and then submit. Okay, now this is the finished project. So let me quickly walk you through the whole thing. Up top we have our navigation bar, we have our logo on the left and our navigation links or menu on the right side. We have home, about, skills, services, portfolio and our contacts. Okay, or let's talk. On this main section we have our socials. On the far left we have Facebook, Dribble and GitHub. Okay, so anyone visiting our website can click any of these and it is going to take them to our social media profile. We have our main title, we have our subtitle and we have some paragraph. On this button we can click, or anyone visiting this website can click, and it is going to take them to this form. Okay, this contact form, and they can actually fill this form and message us. Okay, we are going to receive any message from here in our email. On the right side we can see this beautiful animation going on, and we are going to create this as well in this tutorial. So let's proceed down. Let's go to the about section. Here on the about section we have this image on the left side, so this would be our image, and we have our detailed description on the right side. Now we can show more. We can click to show more about us, or we can click to show less. Okay, now our recruiters or any clients visiting our website can download our CV. Okay, so we can click download and it is going to download a PDF of our CV. Now let's go to our skills section. This is where you would showcase your skills, the various tools and technologies you know. So we know UI UX design, we have front-end development, back-end development and all that. So we can click to see the tools that we use. Okay, we have front-end development, we can see the different languages and then the frameworks. Right, so that is for the skills. Let's go to the services section. So here is where you would show your services, the different services that you offer, and then here you would show your work. Okay, your recent work or your best projects. So that is for the portfolio section, and for each project you would have a link that would go to the source code for the project, and that is going to open in a new tab. So that would go to the GitHub for the project, and then the live demo as well. Okay, so this would go to a live demo of the project. So we have that, and then here we have our testimonial section. Okay, so this would be your actual testimonial section, and here also we have the contacts section. So let me just enter anything here. So this would be my name. Let's enter an email. Now we have some client-side validation. Okay, so let's try and submit this, and it is telling us this is not a valid email. So let's enter a real email. Let's try and submit again, and we have to enter a subject, and then for the message I'm just going to copy this and then paste it in here. Okay, so let's submit our form, and we are going to use Google reCAPTCHA, okay, to prevent bots from spamming us. Okay, and we are going to receive that message in our email. So let's check our email. And this is the message from our form. Okay, this is the message from our website. So this is the name, we have the email, we have the subject, which is also here, and then we have the message itself. Okay, so everything is working good. Let's scroll down, and here we have our footer section. Okay, so for the footer section we have our logo, our permalinks, and then our socials as well. Okay, and here we have our copyright. Now let's check the responsiveness. Okay, as I said, this is going to be responsive, so let's see the responsiveness. So this is how it is going to look on mobile. This is how our website is going to look on mobile. Okay, this is how our website is going to look on mobile. The animation is working great. We can click to go to the contact section. This is going to be our footer. We can still submit our forms here. This is our project, our individual projects. This is our services. Okay, our skills section. Everything working great. All right, so this is what we are going to create in this tutorial, and we have a lot to do, so let's get started. So to have a live website, we first need the website, that is the code for the website, and this is going to be free. And we need a domain. Okay, so a domain is just the website's name. Mine is going to be egatortutorials.com. Facebook is facebook.com, Google is google.com. So that is the name of the website. We call that a domain. The next thing we need is hosting. Okay, so hosting is just a server somewhere, usually a company server that serves your files to different visitors across the world. Okay, so that everyone around the world can access your website 24/7. And the hosting provider we are going to use is Hostinger. And I have a link in the description. That is my affiliate link. If you use that, I may get a commission from your purchase. Okay, so if you appreciate the tutorials, please use that, and it is going to help me a lot. Now coming down here, we have three plans. We have the single shared hosting, we have the premium shared hosting, and then we have the business shared hosting as well. I'm going to use the premium shared hosting. Okay, I think that suits my needs for now. Okay, so we can host 100 websites on this plan. They are going to give us 100 GB SSD storage. That is amazing. They're also going to give us free SSL. Okay, we are going to have a free SSL, which is going to be the lock icon. Let me show you that real quick. Making sure our website is secure, and we are going to get that for free. They're also going to give us a free domain name, okay, for 1 year. So we won't have to pay $10 more for our domain name, right? And they give you a lot more things. So I prefer this premium shared hosting, so that is what I'm going to choose. By the way, there's a Black Friday promo going on. Okay, so depending on when you are watching this video, the prices may change. Okay, they may change a little bit, but they are still going to be better than other hosting providers prices. Okay, so I'm going to use this premium shared hosting, and I'm going to select the 12 months. Okay, I'm going to select the 12 months, and the total here is $23.88. Okay, we are going to enter our email here. Okay, so that is my email, and you can choose any payment option that you want. I'm going to use the credit card. Okay, I'm going to pay with my credit card, so I'm going to enter my details here. All right, so I'm going to click submit secure payment. I'm going to click to submit. Now ignore this message. My first payment did not go through. Let me show you real quick. So the first payments did not go through, okay, because I wasn't having my phone around to verify the payments. Okay, that is why it says that is why we have this here. Okay, but let's proceed and claim our domain. Okay, so they are giving us a free domain. Let's proceed to claim it. So your domain name is going to be your website name. All right, so the domain name for this, I'm going to say, okay, so this is going to be my domain name. Let me check to see if it is available, and it is available. Okay, so I'm going to claim it, and we are going to create our website ourselves. So we are going to skip this step. So let's move on to creating our website. Okay, all right, so now let's proceed to creating our website. Let's proceed to coding our website. So here in my project folder, I have a folder called images, and that is going to have my images, all the images we are going to use throughout the project. And I'm going to leave a link to the source code, okay, and that is going to include all these images as well. Now let's create a HTML file. So index.html. Let's create a style sheet, so style.css, and then our JavaScript file, and that is main.js. Okay, now let's open this project in our text editor. I'm going to use VS Code for this, so I'm going to open it in VS Code, and here is our project. Okay, here is our project inside of VS Code. Now with VS Code, I'm going to use two extensions. I'm going to use Emmet, which actually comes pre-installed in VS Code, and that is going to help us with shortcuts. Okay, and also I'm going to use preview on web server. Okay, and that is going to help me preview my website without having to reload every single time, or without having to refresh the page myself. Okay, so let's proceed, and we are going to start with our navbar. But first, I'm going to do exclamation tab, and that is going to generate this boilerplate. Okay, and that is the power of Emmet. So if you're using Atom or any other text editor, you can install Emmet inside of it. Okay, you should get Emmet in there as well. My title is going to be responsive personal portfolio website using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. All right, that is my title. Now I'm going to link my style sheet. Okay, so with Emmet, I'm just going to do link tab, and then I can link my style sheet. Let me remove this. Okay, so that is my style sheet linked. Let me leave a comment here. Perfect. So let's proceed with our navbar. Okay, so I'm going to have our navbar inside of a nav tag, and there's an HTML5 semantic tag, and everything inside of it is going to be wrapped inside a container. Okay, so a div with a class of container. And first I'm going to have my logo, and that is going to be inside of h3 or heading 3. That is my logo right there. And I'm going to have my menu items. Okay, and that is going to be inside of an added list, and every li or every list item is going to have the link, which is an a tag, an anchor tag. The first is going to be home, the next is going to be about. I'm going to have skills. I'm going to have the next to be services. I'm going to have portfolio, and the last one is going to be the contacts. Okay, and that is going to say let's talk. All right, so those are our nav menu. Let me actually check to see 1 2 3 4 5 6. Yes, so we have all the 6 menu items. Now this first one, which is the home, is going to go to the home page. So when we click the home, it should bring us up to the top of the page. Okay, just like we can click this about, and it is going to take us to the about section. What we are going to do here is put a hashtag about. So the reason why I'm having this about inside the href, okay, hashtag about, is because we are going to have an ID inside the section. Okay, inside the about section. So the ID in this about section is going to be about. Okay, it's going to be this. So that means when we click this link, it should go to the section with an ID of about. Okay, just like the skills section, we are going to have hashtag skills, and that will take us to the skills section. Okay, the skills section is going to have an ID of skills. Okay, the next is going to be services, portfolio. The last one is going to be contact. Okay, so when we click this, it should take us to the section with the ID of contact. Now the last thing we are going to have in our navbar is two icons. Okay, let me show you real quick. So on mobile, we are going to have this hamburger icon and this close icon as well. Okay, they are only going to show on mobile. So we are going to get those icons from Google Material Icons, and I'm going to use this. Okay, actually, let's go to, and I'm going to grab this link right here, copy, and then paste it right at the top. So let's go to Google Fonts, and then let's go to icons. Let's search menu, and that is going to give us the hamburger icon. Actually, I'm going to use the sharp. Okay, the sharp. So let me search again, menu, and then I'm going to grab this pan right here. I'm going to grab that and paste it inside of here, but I'm going to have it inside a button tag. Okay, so that should give us our button. The next is going to be the close, so I'm going to have close here. Now let's open this inside our browser. Okay, let's open the project in our browser. So I'm going to right click and then launch on browser right here. And now there is a problem. The two icons that we grabbed from here are not showing. Why is it not showing? That is because we changed to sharp. Okay, so we are using only sharp icons. So in the CDN, I'm going to add sharp, and now our icons should show. So let's see. So that is all for our nav markup, our navbar markup. So let's proceed to the CSS or the style sheet and then give this some styling. Now, before we proceed to styling our navbar, we are going to have some general styles. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to have some colors. Okay, we are going to have some variable for our colors and other stuff. Okay, so these are variables we are going to use throughout the video. Okay, so in case you don't know, we can use variables in CSS3. Okay, so these are going to be my root variables. That means I can use them anywhere inside of this CSS file. So to initiate or to declare a variable, you just have two hyphens, the name of the variable, a colon, and then the value. Okay, so this is going to be my color white. So anywhere I need color white, I'm just going to use this variable. We have color light, which is light gray. We have color dark, we have color black, and all that. Okay, so these are going to be my variables. And some things like hover effects for buttons and all that, we are going to have some transitions. We can have different transitions and all that, but I want every transition in this project to be the same. Okay, so they are going to all have all. That means everything that we are transitioning, and then they are going to transition in 0.3 seconds or 300 milliseconds, and then the timing function, the animation or transition timing function, is going to be is. Okay, so these are going to be the variables we are going to use throughout the project. Now let's check out our project inside the browser. You can see we have some underlines, we have some bullets, we have some margins and paddings and all that. So we are going to remove that. So let's do that right now. So we are going to say all. That means every element inside the web page. We are going to remove every margin. Okay, every padding as well, we are going to remove those. Every outline, every border is going to be 0. Our box sizing should be border box. Okay, everything should be boxed inside of its container. We are going to say list style. Okay, so our bullets list style none, and then text decoration. Okay, so the underlines for our links and all that should be none as well. And now we should have a clean page. Okay, so this is what we have, but I don't like the font also. Okay, I don't like the font, so I'm going to go back to Google Fonts, and I'm going to go to browse fonts, and I'm going to get Montserrat. Okay, that is the font I'm going to use, Montserrat. Let's see. So here I'm going to grab the light. Okay, with 300 font weight, I'm going to grab that. I'm going to get the regular. I'm going to get the medium, which is this 500 font weights. I'm going to get the semi bold, the bold, and then the extra bold. Okay, those are what we are going to use. Now to import it or to link it to your project, I'm just going to copy this and then put it inside of my HTML, but I can also import it into my style sheet, okay, inside my CSS file. So you can do either. So I'm going to go back to my HTML. That is what I prefer to do. And then here I'm going to leave a comment and then paste it right here. Okay, let's go back to the CSS. Now our HTML is going to have a font size of 15 pixels, and I want to have that smooth scrolling. Okay, so smooth scroll behavior. I'm going to change this scroll behavior to smooth, and this is what that code is going to do. So let's say we are going to the contact page. You see how it takes us smoothly to that page. It's not like jumping to that section, it just takes us there smoothly. That is what this smooth behavior does. Okay, let's move on to the body. The body is going to have a background of color white. Okay, so we are using this background here, color white. This value is going to apply. That is for the body. We are going to have a font family. Okay, so and we are going to have that Montserrat font family that we linked, okay, that we imported here. We are going to have that font family. So let me actually go back to the Montserrat and then grab this. Let me just copy this and then paste it right here. So that is going to be the font family. We are going to have a color, so color dark, and that is going to be that dark gray color. This right here, that's color dark. And we are going to have a max width of 100 viewport width. Okay, and viewport width is a unit. Okay, viewport width is a unit. Just like we have pixels, percentage, and all that, we have rems as well. We are going to use rems, percentages, and then viewport width a lot in this video. We are not going to be using pixels because we are trying to create a responsive website. Now let's move on to our headings. Every H1, H2, H3, H4 and H5. Let's give them some general styles. Let's see. They are all going to have color black. They're going to have a line height of 1.2. Now let's style them individually. So every H1 is going to have a font size of 3.8 rem. Every H2 is going to have a font size of 2.6 rem. Every H3, a font size of 1.6 rem. Every H4 is going to have a font size of 1.2 rem, and every H5 is going to have a font size of 0.86 rem. Okay, those are for our headings. Now every paragraph, every P is going to have a line height of 1.8. Anything with a class of container is going to have a width of 80% and margin of 0 auto. So this is going to center every container horizontally. Okay, this is going to horizontally center every container inside its parent. Moving on, every section. So we are going to have some sections. We are going to have the about section, the scale section, and all that. So every section is going to have a padding of 10 for the top, 10 rem for the top, 0 for the left and right, and 7 rem for the bottom. They are going to have a max width as well, max width 100 viewport width, that is maximum width, and then overflow X. We don't want any overflows on the horizontal axis, okay? So we are going to have overflow heading. Every H1 in a section, okay, every heading 1 in a section is going to have a text align center, and it's going to be displayed block, and then we are going to set the margin border to 5 rem. Now every image, every IMG should have a width of 100%, okay? It should be exactly the width of its parent, that is the width of 100%. Let's move on to the last general styles that we are going to have before we move on to the nav. So every BTN, every class of BTN, those are going to be our buttons. Every class of BTN is going to have a padding of 1.4 rem for the top and bottom, and 3.4 rem for the left and right. Font size is going to be 1.1 rem. They are going to have a color of color black. They are going to be black. Their background is going to be the color white, which is the white color. Display, they are going to be displayed inline block, inline block, inline block. And margin, they are going to have a margin of 2 rem 0. Now we are going to have some hover effects on all the buttons, okay? So we are going to have transition, and the transition value is going to be the value we set up front, okay? We set in the root, okay? So transition is going to be the transition value we have up here. Let me show you. The transition value is going to be this, okay? So this is the name of the variable that we are using here. Now let's move on to BTN primary, okay? So some buttons are going to have this class of BTN primary as well. So every button with a class of BTN primary is going to have a background of the primary color. So color primary, let me show you that. So this is the primary color, and that is the variable we are using. So they are going to have color primary, and the color, the text color is going to be color white. All right, but as I said, we are going to have some hover effects. So every button hover effect is going to be a box shadow, okay? So we are going to have a box shadow, 0 on the x-axis, 2 rem on the y-axis, 2 rem for the blur, and then they are going to have a color of color primary light, okay? That is going to be kind of transparent orange. So it's going to be this color but transparent. So this is the transparency, okay? So that is color primary light, okay? So it's this exact same orange color, but it is transparent, almost transparent. Now let's see how our general styles have affected our page so far. So this is it, okay? The nav has a container, a direct child of container. So that is why we give the container, let's see, we give the container width of 80%. So that is why it is in the middle right here. So let's proceed to styling it more, okay? So let me actually put this side by side so that we can see what's happening in our web page. So let's head to the navbar, okay? Let's style our navbar. So our navbar is inside the tag of nav. We are going to give it a width. Let me give it a background here so that you see what's happening. Let me give it just a coral background. I'm going to remove this, but just to see what is happening. We are going to give our navbar a width of 100%. Let's give it a height of 5 rem. I'm going to give it a background. Now I'm going to change the background to white. So that is color white. That is the variable we have up top. So I can remove this. Moving on, I'm going to display flex, okay? I'm going to display flex. That is because I want this centered. I want the container, the direct child of this nav. I want it vertically and horizontally centered. So display flex, and I'm going to align items to the center and justify content to the center as well. I'm going to position the nav fixed. Okay, I want it to be fixed on the page, and then from the top is going to be 0. I'm going to have a z index of 2. I'm going to give it a z index of 2 so that it is always at the top of the page, or in front of the page rather. I'm going to give it a bottom of 1 pixel solid, and I'm going to give it a light color, so color light. Let me show you that color. It is a light gray. That is F4. That is the light color we are using. So it's there. Let me show you. The color is there, but you can see it. If I should change this to, let's say, black, then you should see it clearly. Okay, so the color light is there, but it is very light, so you can see it on the white background. Okay, so let's move on to the direct child of the nav. So nav container, and for the container we are going to give it a display of flags. We are going to display flags, and then justify content to be space between. I'm going to align everything to the center, and then give it a height of 100%, and that is going to be the height of 5 rem. Okay, 100% of its parent height. All right, so we have that. Now I want to remove these buttons. Okay, we are not going to have them, or we are not going to need them on the desktop. So here nav button, they all have, both of them were inside a tag of button, right? Button. So I'm just going to remove them. I'm going to display none. Now let's move on and style our logo. Okay, let's style our logo. So now that is H3, right? Our logo was inside an H3. We are just going to change the color to color primary. We want that to be an orange color. That is the primary color. Let's move on to style our nav items, or our nav menu. So now container UL. Remember, they were inside an added list. Okay, let me show you. These are our nav items. So we are going to style this. Let's go back to the CSS. So inside our UL, we are going to display flex, give it a height of 100% as well. Now let's target the links. Okay, the links or the anchor tags inside of the LIs. Okay, so nav container UL LIA. So all the anchor tags, we are going to give them a height of 100% as well. That is the 5 rem that we have up top here. So this is the parent of them all, and this has a height of 5 rem, 100%. That means it is taking the full height of this. This is also taking the full height, and this is also taking the full height. So basically they are all inheriting 5 rems. All right, so every anchor is going to have a width as well of 7 rem. You know what, let me actually give them a background. Let's say red, so that you can see them, but I'm going to remove the background. I'm going to display them flex, then justify content to the center, and I'm going to align items as well to the center. Okay, let me give it a color. Let me save it so that you see what is going on. I'm going to give them a color of color. Let me see, I'm going to use the variable color black. Okay, so those are our colors, and I'm going to position them relative. But also I'm going to have some hover effects. Let me actually remove this red. I'm going to have some hover effects so that we have the primary color on hover. Okay, so I'm going to have some transition, and that is going to be the variable transition. Okay, so transition, and on hover, so nav container UL LI A, that is the anchor. On hover, I'm going to change the color, so color primary, and let's see, we have our hover effect. Beautiful. Nice. Now let's proceed. Actually, let me go back and then let me give one of these an active class. So let's see, the home page is going to be active by default, so class active, and I'm going to style that active class. So I'm going to copy this, paste it here, and then with the active class, let me put this side by side again. With the active class, I'm going to have a background of the primary, so color primary, and then the text is going to be white. Okay, so color white. Okay, so every nav item with a class of active is going to have the primary background, and then the color is going to be white as well. So this is what we have. We are going to style the mobile version, or the media queries is going to be around the middle of the video. Okay, so it is going to be after we are done with the desktop version. So let's proceed to the main section. Okay, the main section, the markup for the main section. Let me leave a comment here to show the end of the navbar. Okay, so that we see everything clearly. This is going to be a long file, so okay, so let's move on to the landing, okay, or the main section. Let's see, we are going to have a section with a class of landing. Okay, and inside of that we are going to have a container as well. And first we are going to have our socials, so a div with a class of socials. We are going to have a div with a class of info, and then a div with a class of profile area. So first, let's deal with the div with a class of social. That is going to have our social media links. Okay, so first we are going to have Facebook, so https facebook.com/ your profile, right? You would have to put your profile here, so maybe facebook.com/Daniel or anything, right? And here we are going to have, and actually we want this to open in a new tab. So what we are going to do here is add target equals underscore blank. Okay, blank, and this is going to open it inside another tab or a new tab. And we are going to have the Facebook logo icon here. So let's go to material icons, Google material icons. Let's go, let me see, material icons, sharp. Let's search Facebook, and we can't have Facebook. They don't have Facebook. Okay, they don't have the Facebook icon. So what I'm going to do is get another source of icons. Okay, so I'm going to grab icon scout CDN, and I have it here. So I'm just going to grab this, go back to the markup, go up to the head, and then leave a comment, icon scout CDN, right? And I'm just going to paste it right here. And because we don't have the Facebook icon inside of material icons, I'm just going to go to the icon scout page, iconscout.com, and hopefully we get that there. Okay, hopefully we get the Facebook icon. So let's search Facebook, and we have it. Okay, we have the Facebook icon. So I'll just come back here, and this is going to be the Facebook link, so I'll just paste it. Let's check our web page, and we have Facebook. Okay, that is the Facebook icon. Let's go back. The next is going to be dribble, and another is going to be, so this is going to be dribble.com. So let's get the link for dribble. Let's search dribble. Let's get the link, and let's paste it right here. Let's replace it with this. Let's see if we have it. and that is Dribble. Okay, the next is going to be GitHub. We are going to have GitHub, so let's search GitHub. Let's use this. Let's go back and then replace this with GitHub. Okay, so this is going to go to github.com, and we have Dribbled, GitHub, and all that. Okay, so those are our socials. Now let's move on to the info section. The info section first is going to have our main title. That is our main title. We are going to have an H3, and that is going to be our subtitle. Hi, Coffee Omega. And then we are going to have some paragraph. Okay, so lorem 30, and that should be good. I think this is too much. Oh, that's actually okay. Now let's move on to the profile section, and this section is going to have that animating profile. Okay, let's go up. It's going to be this animation right here. So inside the profile section, we are going to have another div inside of it with a class of outer circle. Let's see, inside of the outer circle, we are going to have some icons. Let me show you real quick. So we are going to have 4 icons. Okay, so let me see, let's search those icons. We are going to have design. Let's say design. Let's see, let's go back to this side, the Google material icons. Let's say design. Let's see whether we can find anything sensible here. Okay, so let me just duplicate this 4 times and then change the content real quick. Okay, so we are going to have, the next one is going to be, let's see, the next one is going to be server. We are going to have server. Just grab this, change. The next is going to be code. I'm going to grab this, that is going to be code. The last one is going to be, let's see, I don't know, video or something. I don't really know what that is, so let me actually just grab anything here. Okay, I think you can customize this to suit your needs or what you actually do. Okay, so that is that, and we are going to have another inner, and we are going to have another div with a class of inner circle. Okay, and that is going to hold the image. Okay, the image, our profile, that is going to hold our profile image right here. So we are going to just get that image from images, and that is going to be our profile. Let's see, that is going to be our profile. Okay, the name of the image is profile. Let me show you real quick. Profile. Okay, so this is the image that we are going to use. All right, perfect. So that is all for the markup for our landing or our main section. So let me leave a comment at the end here. Perfect. Now let's move on to the CSS and give this some styling. All right, so this is what we have from the landing section markup. Okay, so let's style this. Let's give this some CSS. Let me actually make this smaller. Okay, so section with a class of landing, right? we are going to display grid, okay, just because we are going to place items to the center. Okay, we are going to place the direct child, which is the container of this section. We are going to place that in the center. We are placing that in the center. Okay, so for the section, we are going to position it relative and push it down 5 rem. Okay, so top of 5 rem. Let's give it a padding bottom of 14 rem as well. Okay, so nothing changed pretty much. Let's move on to the container. The container is going to be displayed grid as well. And since we have 3 direct children inside, that is the socials, the info, and then the profile area, we are going to give it a grid template columns of 5 rem for the socials auto, for the info section, 28 rem for the profile area. Okay, so this side, which is the socials side, is 5 rem, which is this. The profile side, which is this side, is 28 rem. And then the info side, which is this middle side, is going to be the auto. Okay, let's leave some gap between them. A gap of 2 rem should be okay. So we have that. Now let's move on to the socials. Okay, so section landing socials. The socials are going to be displayed flex. Let's change the flex direction to column. Let's give it a gap of 1.6 rem between the items, and then margin top, let's push it down 5 rem as well. All right, so that is the socials that we have. Let's move on to the links. Okay, the anchors in the social. Okay, so the individual anchor tags. So section landing socials A. Okay, we're going to change the font size. Let's increase it a little bit, 1.1 rem. The background is going to be the light gray, so color light. Let's give it a color of color dark, and then a pattern of 0.3 rem. Border radius is going to be 50%. We want them to be circle. So that is what we have. Pretty ugly, but we are going to correct it real soon. Let's give it a fixed height of 2 rem. Same for the width, 2 rem as well. Now the icons in the anchor tags are not really centered. Okay, they are not vertically and horizontally centered. So we are going to display flex, just because we want to justify content to center and then align items to the center as well. Okay, so that does that. Now we want to have some hover effects. Okay, so let's say section landing socials A. We want to have the background change to the primary background, so color primary. And then we want to have the colors change as well, the color of the font. So let's see, you see the backgrounds change, all right, but the colors inside, or the icons, don't really show. Okay, they don't really contrast inside of it. So we are going to change the colors as well to, come on, let's change the color to color white. Let's see, and now they look pretty good. And we want the hover effect to be smooth. Okay, so let's come back up and then set a transition, and we are going to use the variable transition that we use for everything. And now you can see the transition is pretty smooth. So that is for our socials. Now let's move on to the info section. Let me actually make this bigger, and then yeah, that is good. So section landing info, the H1 is going to be text aligned to the left. Come on. And then I'm going to set the margin to 0. Okay, I don't want any margins. And then let's move to the H3. Okay, this subtitle right here. So section landing H3, let's give it a margin of 2.4 rem for the top, 0 for the left and right, and then 1 rem for the bottom. Okay, so we have some decent space. Now let's move on to the paragraph or the P. So section, landing, info, P. Okay, so that paragraph, we are just going to give it a fixed width of 35 rem. Perfect. And this looks pretty good. Now let's move on to, you know what, we forgot to add our button right here. Okay, so we should have a button here that says let's talk. Okay, so that our recruiters or everyone visiting our websites can just click it and it will take them directly to our contacts form. Okay, that is going to basically be our call to action button. So let's do that. So let me go back, and then let's see, right at the end of the P of this paragraph, I'm going to have an anchor tag, and that is going to go to the contact section or the section with the ID of contact. Let's give this a class of BTN and BTN primary. Remember, we had these two classes styled already. Okay, so they should take effect immediately. Let's go back to the CSS, and as you can see, we have our button styled already. Okay, because we already had it styled up top in our general styles. Let's see. Yes, we have that styles already. That's BTN and then the BTN primary. All right, so let's go back down and then continue with our styling. All right, so now let's move on to the profile area. Okay, the profile area is going to be this area, that is the animation part. Let's move on to that. So section, London, profile area. The profile area is going to be displayed flex. Going to justify content to the center, align items to the center as well. Okay, and the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to position the inner circle. Okay, we had a div with a class of inner circle. I'm going to position that absolute. Okay, let's move on to the outer circle. So section, landing, profile area, and then the outer circle. We had a div with a class of outer circle. The width for that is going to be 28 rem. The height is going to be the same, 28 rem. We are going to have a border. Okay, a border of 1 pixel solid, and that this border is going to be the primary color. So color primary. Okay, so this should be landing. All right, so we have our outer circle looking pretty gross, nothing really showing. So first of all, I'm just going to display none on the inner circle. Okay, so this image is inside the div with a class of inner circle. So I'm just going to display none for now before we are going to get it back when we are done with this. Okay, you know what, I think this outer circle is too big, so let me go back up, and then this should be 20, let's say 26 rem, and this should be 26 rem as well. And yes, it looks pretty good now. All right, let me go back up actually and then change this to 26 rem as well. Okay, sorry for that. Now for the outer circle, let's continue with the outer circle. Let's give it a border radius, okay, of 50% to make it a circle. And in position, let's position this relative. I can give it a background just so you can see it well. Let's give it a blue background. We are going to take that blue background off, but just for you to see everything clearly, it should be there for now. Now let's proceed to the spans. Okay, remember we had some icons in the outer circle, right? These icons, and because this is positioned relative, we can actually position these icons absolute inside the outer circle, right? So let's give a general style for all the spans. So all the spans are going to be displayed block. They are going to have a width 4 rem, a height of 4 rem as well. Let's give them a border radius of 50% to make them a circle. Let's give them a position of absolutes. Okay, as I said, a background, let's give them a background, and they are all going to have a white background and a color. they are going to have the primary color, and I'm going to display flex. Let me quickly show you. Okay, so we have everything here. Okay, so the icons are all on top of each other, right? So I'm going to display flex. I'm going to justify content to the center, and then align items to the center, right? So that they are well centered. And the reason why I did that is because, let me show you something real quick. Let me change the background here. The background, let me change that to black, and then let me remove this, and you can see they were not centered. Okay, so we are using flexbox here to make sure the icons are centered inside the appearance or the span. Okay, so that is why I did that. Let me change this back to the white color, so color white, and they are all going to have a box shadow. Okay, so box shadow, 0 on the x-axis, 0 on the y-axis, 1 rem for the blur, variable color, primary lights. Okay, and that is going to be the translucent color primary. Okay, this color right here, it is translucent. All right, so that is all for the spans. Now we are going to target each span. Okay, we had 4 spans, so we are going to take each one of them and then position them around the outer circle. So let me grab this, and the first one, so we are going to use pseudo selector here, CSS pseudo selector, so nth child, and we are going to grab the first child from the left. Is going to, they are already absolute. Okay, we have already positioned them absolute, so we are just going to use the left, the right, the top, and then the bottom to make sure they are right where we want them to be. So the left for the first one is going to be 50%, right? But it is not exactly 50% from the left. Okay, so we are going to calculate, and then 50%, we are going to subtract half the width of the span. So half 4 rem is going to be 2 rem. Okay, and that should put it right where it should be. Okay, and from the top, we are going to also put it 2 rem, negative 2 rem from the top. So that is exactly where we want it to be. The next one, let me just copy this, and that is going to be from the right, negative 2 rem, and then from the top, calculate 50% minus 2 rem. Okay, and that is that for the second one. The third one is going to be from the left, negative 2 rem, and then from the top, calculate 50% minus 2 rem. We are going to put it at the bottom here. So from the, it is going to be negative 2 rem, and then from the left, it is going to be 50% minus 2 rem. Okay, and we have them right where we want them to be. Now let me remove the blue background. Okay, we are getting closer to our result, so let me remove that. Come on, this is too light. Let me see. I think I made a mistake here. This border shouldn't be the light, it should be the primary. Okay, all right, so we have our border. Nice. So what I'm going to do now is the animation. Okay, we should have this moving around, so I'm just going to create an animation right here. So I'm going to use the keyframes, and then I'm just going to call this move. Okay, the animation, this is going to be the name of the animation, and this is going to go to, I'm going to use the rotate property. Okay, but to have access to the rotate property, you first have to transform and then rotate. Okay, I'm going to rotate this 360 degrees. So here we are just going to animate it. So animation, we named our animation move. Okay, that is the name we gave it right here. This animation is going to take 30 seconds for it to animate a full cycle, and this is going to be linear. Okay, linear is going to be the timing function, the animation timing function, And then lastly, we want this to animate forever. Okay, so infinite or infinite, whatever it is. And as you can see, we have our outer circle animating. Okay, nice, beautiful, great. All right, so now let's move on to the inner circle. Okay, let's position our gentleman right in the middle here. So this is the inner circle. Let me remove this display. Okay, and we have a problem already, but do not worry because we are going to position our inner circle absolute, and that takes care of that. Let's give it a width of 20 rem, a height of 20 rem as well, and then a border radius of 50% to make it a circle. Our image is still a square, so we have to set the overflow for our inner circle to hidden. Okay, and we have our perfect animation. You know what, let me decrease this. Okay, this value should be, let's say 18 rem for this, and then 18 rem as well for this, and I think that looks pretty good. Nice. So now let's move on to the about section. Okay, let's move on to the about section. Let me maximize this a little bit. So section with a class of about, and actually we should have an ID as well. Okay, so an ID of about as well. Okay, so that we can just click this and then it will take us down to the about section. Okay, just like this. All right, so inside the about section, we are first going to have our h1, that is going to be our title, about. Next, we are going to have our container. Okay, and inside the container we are going to have two sections. The first section is going to be the image. Okay, so our image or our portrait. So let's give that a class of image, and it is going to have our image. So let's get into our images folder and then get, let's see, which one was it? Let me see. Okay, so profile about. Okay, so that is the name of the image. So, and then the next section is going to be the info section, our description. So for that, we are going to just have some paragraphs. Okay, so the first paragraph, let's say lorem, just some dummy text. I'm just going to do lorem 100. That's probably too much, but we're just going to keep it. The next one is going to be, let's say lorem 60. Actually, you know what, this is too much. Okay, so let me remove some. Okay, so those are the two paragraphs, and then we are going to have that show more. Okay, so people can read more about us. Okay, so we are going to have that in a div with a class of read more content, and then let's say that should be lorem 80 or 90 for the first one, and another paragraph again, let's say lorem 40. So the next thing we are going to have is the link to click so that we can show this content. Okay, so this content will be hidden, but when we click that link, then it is going to show it. All right, so that link, let's say we are going to give that, it is not going to have any href, but we are going to give it, but let's give it a class of read more, and then it is going to say show more. Okay, so the last thing we are going to have is the download CV button. Okay, so that is also going to be a link. The href is going to go to images and then our CV. Okay, our PDF. We select our PDF. So let's say this is going to have, this is going to say download CV. Okay, and we are going to have an icon here. Okay, so let's go back to, let's see, let me see whether I can get a download icon here. um I don't like these, so I'm going to go to Icon Scout, download. Yeah, I think this is what I used. No, let me use this instead. So I'm just going to copy that and then paste it right here. So for people to be able to download this, you have to add the keyword download. Okay, and that is all you have to do. So we are done with our about markup. Okay, this is all for our about section. Let's go to the CSS and then give this some styling. So this is the markup for our about section. Let's see what we so this is all the markup for the about section. Now let's head to the CSS. So section about. Okay, let's give that a background of the light background, so color light. Okay, let's move on to the container. So section about container, let's display grid. Okay, and grid template columns, the image side, the side with the image is going to be 26 rem, and then the right side or the info side is going to be auto. Okay, let's see, did I do anything wrong? Okay, I misspelled container, and we have this. All right, let's give it some gap. Let me actually shrink this. Let's give it some gap, so a gap of 5 rem. Okay, so that is it. Let's move on to the paragraphs. So every paragraph inside is going to have a margin bottom of 1 rem, so that we can have some spaces between them. We could use the break tag, okay, inside the markup, but I prefer to style it this way. So let's move on to the read more. Okay, the read more contents. So section about container read more content. Okay, so let's display that none, and then we are going to use JavaScript to actually toggle between reading more and then showing more and then showing less, right? So let's move on to the read more button, or this link right here. You know what, this CV, okay, this download CV should have some classes. This should have some classes so that it can be a button. So I'm just going to give it a class of btn primary, and that should be a button. That should give us a button. Let's see, and we have it. All right, so let's just style this. So section about container read more, right? We give it a class of read more. Let's display block on that. Let's give it a margin 1 rem for the top, 0 for the left and right, and 2 rem for the bottom, and that is it. Let me change the color. So the color is going to be the primary color, and let's see, let me change the cursor to pointer. Okay, I want this to, let's change the cursor to pointer, and that is all. But you know what, I want on hover, I want it to have an underline. Okay, so on hover, text decoration should be underlined. Okay, so we have an underline on hover, and that is all for the about section. All right, now let's move on to the skills section. Okay, so we are done with the about section. Let's move on to the skills section. Okay, so here's the skills section in the finished project, right? Each of these is going to be a skill. Okay, each of these is going to be a skill, and for each skill we are going to have items. Okay, all of these are going to be inside a div with a class of items, and then each one of these, okay, so Figma, Adobe XD, After Effects, these are going to be individual items, so they are going to be a div with a class of item. Okay, so their parent is going to be items, and then they are going to be item. Okay, a class of item, and then this is going to be a head. Okay, so a div with a class of head. So that is how we are going to tackle each of these. Okay, so we are just going to create one of these, and then after that I'm going to duplicate this to fill in the markup. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on this. Once you get the first one, you can just duplicate the other ones and then change the values or the contents, right? So let's get to the HTML and start doing that. All right, so let's get to the skills section and an ID. Remember, we have to give it an ID as well, right? So that we can just click on the skill in the navbar just to get to this section, right? So we have to give it an ID of skills, a class of skills, and an ID of skills as well. Okay, inside of it we are going to have our h1 skills, and then we are going to have our container. Okay, let's first have our first skill. For this skill we are going to have the head. Okay, and that is going to be this. I've showed you already, so yeah. So we are going to have the head, and inside the head we are going to have the left side. Okay, so a div with a class of left, and inside the left you are going to have our icon. Okay, so let me show you that also. So this is the left side, this is going to be the right side. So the left side is going to have this icon and then this title. Okay, and then the right side here is going to have this icon only. All right, so let's go to, I think, let's come here and then search design. Let's see if we can find, come on, design. I want to get that same. Okay, so there's it. I'm just going to grab the span, copy, and we are going to have our title as well. Okay, and that is going to be inside a heading 4 or an h4, and that is UI UX design. So that is for the left side. The right side is going to have the drop down. Okay, so down, let's see, it's going to have this arrow. Let me use this instead, copy, and then paste that right here. That is all for the head section. Oh, this should be inside a head. Okay, a div with a class of head. So the left and then the right should be inside a div with a class of head. So this is what we have so far. Now let's get to the skill items. Okay, so items, and then each of the skills that we know, let's say Adobe XD and all that, each of these are going to be item. Okay, a div with a class of item. So for each item we are going to have an h5. The first one is going to be Figma. The next is going to be the progress area, and the progress area is going to have the progress bar. Let me show you. The progress area is going to have the progress bar and then the percentage here. Okay, so we are going to have a div with a class of progress area. Inside of it we are going to have the progress bar, and we are going to have the progress. Okay, let's see the progress. So the progress is going to be this orange. Okay, and the progress bar is going to be this light. Okay, this light color. So let's go back, and then we are going to have our percentage. Okay, so that is going to be inside an h5, and this is going to be 92%. And that is all for one of our items. Okay, so let me leave a comment here so that we can see clearly. I'm just going to duplicate this item a few times and then change the markup 1 2. So we have what? So we have Figma, Adobe XD, and Adobe After Effects. So this is 88%, 75%. 5%, right? Let's see what we have. And we have it. Okay, so this is all we need for one scale. Okay, this one scale. So let's get to the CSS, style it, and then I'll come back to the markup. Now the container is going to have a width of 50%. Let me actually put this side by side so that you see what's going on. So we are giving it a width of 50%. Okay, so that is the 50% taking effect here. Let's move on to each of the scales. So actually here we only have one scale, okay, a div with a class of scale, and that has all of these. So let me show you real quick. Each of these are going to be scale, okay, a div with a class of scale, and they are going to contain these items, right? So for now we only have this scale, okay, with all these individual items. So we are just going to style this, and then I'll go back to the markup to duplicate this, okay, and then I'll fill in the markup to get these different scales. All right, so let's get back to our project and let's go to section, scales, and then scale. I'm going to give them margin bottom of 1 rem. Let's go on. So section, scales, scale, and then the head, primary color. Okay, so color primary. Let's display flex and justify content to be spaced between. I'm going to align items to the center and change the color to white. Let's move on and let's give the heading or the head a padding of 1.6 rem and a cursor pointer. So now let's select the H4 and then give it some styling. We are going to change only the color here. So the H4, we are going to change the color to white. Okay, the variable white color. Come on, color white. And that is for the H4. Oh, H4. Okay, that is the H4. Now let's move on to the left. Okay, inside the head we have this left side. Okay, so we are going to display flex on that so that we have these side by side. So let me select this, and then the left, we are going to display flex and align items to the center. So we have that. Let's give some space between them, so gap 1 rem, and that is enough. Let's move on to the individual items. Okay, so section, let me actually just paste this. Every item is going to be displayed flex. We are going to change the flex direction. Flex direction should be column. Align items to start. Let's give them a gap of 1 rem, a padding of 1.6 rem as well. Let's give them a background of the color light background. This should be padding. Okay, this should be background. Color light, that's the light color, the light gray. And then margin bottom. Okay, so we have our items, okay, our individual items. Now let's target the progress area. Okay, but first I want to have some hover effects with each of these items, so I'm just going to grab this. I'm going to change the color. Okay, the background color should be the white color, but I want the hover effect to be smooth, so I'm going to do transition, and we are going to use our variable transition. Okay, and now we have that smooth hover effect. Nice. Now let's move on to the progress area. Okay, so we have a progress area here with a progress bar, and then this percentage is also going to come right here, okay, on the right side. So let's target the progress area. Let's give it a width of 100%. Let's display flex. and align items to the center. And you are seeing nothing because the progress area, that is the progress bar, is not showing yet. Okay, we are going to target that, and then you see the effect of this take place. Okay, so for now, let's just give a gap between them, a gap of 1 rem. Nice. Now let's move on to the progress bar itself. Okay, the progress bar is inside of the progress area. The progress bar is going to have a width of 100% as well, a height of 1 rem, and a background of the primary light background. So color primary light, that is it. So you see we have our progress bar. Now inside the progress bar, we are going to have our progress, our actual progress, and that is going to have this primary color as well. So we are going to have inside the progress bar, we are going to have our progress. Let's give it a height of 1 rem, which is 100% of the parent, 100% of this, and then let's give it a width as well. Okay, so the first one is 92%. Okay, so we know about 92% of Figma, so we are going to give it a width of 92%. And then let's change the background. The background is going to be color primary, not light, color primary, and we have it. So we are going to use pseudo selector here to select the second one, which is going to be Adobe XD. And for that, we are just going to change the width to 88%. So we know 88% of Adobe XD. Let me save. And it is not working because let's see, progress bar, progress, and no, this should be the second item. Okay, we are selecting the second item, we are selecting this, so this should be here. So that's going to be the second item, and now we have that 88% progress. Okay, now let's select the last one. Let me duplicate this, then change this to the last one, which is the third one, and that is going to be 75%. Come on, 75%. All right, so that is all for our progress. Okay, that is all for our progress area. That is all for the CSS. We are going to come back to this, okay, in the JavaScript, so that we can have that click, that toggle between showing and hiding of these items. But first, let me show you that we can actually download our CV. So on click, and we are going to download our CV. Okay, I didn't show you that before, so that is that. I'm going to go back to the markup and duplicate to get all these. Okay, I'm going to duplicate the first one, which is this, the one that we just created. I'm going to duplicate that and then fill in, change the content. Okay, so it's just going to be the same style for all of them, but I'm just going to change the content. Obviously, let's say if you know 50% of WordPress, you would have to select that separately and then change the content here and the progress as well to 50%, right? So I'm going to go back to the markup, change that real quick, and then I'll show you the results after that. All right, so I just changed the contents. I just made some duplication and then changed the contents. So let's see the results in our browser. Okay, so this is what we have so far. We have UI UX, we have front end, we have back end, and we have CMS as well. Okay, so now let's move on to the services section. Let's move on to the services section. So now let's move on to our services section. So section with the class of services and an ID of services as well. Okay, now we are going to have our H1, and that is just going to say services. Let's have our container, and inside our container we are going to have service. Okay, each of the cards are going to be service. That's the name of the class. And inside the service we are going to have three things. Okay, we are going to have, let me show you, we're going to have the icon here, this heading or the title, and then this paragraph. Okay, and this is going to be UI UX design. Okay, first we have to have our icon, right? So let's go to material icons real quick. Let's search design. Let's just choose any of the icons that make sense here. I'm going to use this, grab the span, copy, and then paste it right here. The last thing we are going to have is our paragraph, so P, and then just lorem, let's say lorem 30. That's enough, and that is all for our service. Okay, so each of the cards are going to be this service right here. So I'm just going to grab this and duplicate it 2 times and change the contents. So this is how it should look. Okay, let's go back to the CSS. I want to have this side by side, okay, so that we see the effects. So section with a class of services, right? Let's lighten the background. So the background is going to be color light. Nice. Now let's move on to the container. So services of section, the class of services, the container inside of it, we are going to display grid template columns. Okay, grid template columns is going to be, we are going to repeat 3 times 1 FR, and they are going to be side by side. Let's give them some space. So gap is going to be 2 rem. Okay, that is all for our container. Let's move on to the individual services. That's section services with the class of service, right? So container with the class of service. Let's give them a background of white. Okay, color white. Let's move on and give them some padding. So 3 rem for the top and bottom. Come on, 3 rem for the top and bottom, and 2 rem for the left and right. Let's text align everything to the center and display flex. Okay, and I'm going to change the flex direction to be column. Okay, so that they are aligned vertically. Now let's move on and then give some space between them. So the gap is going to be 2 rem, and the cursor is going to be default. Okay, so on hover we are going to have the default. Now you see we have that text, I don't know the name of that cursor, but on default we are going to have the actual cursor. Okay, the default cursor. Now let's move on and have some hover effects for each of them. So for that, I want the hover effect to be smooth, so I'm going to transition everything, and we are going to use the default or the variable transition we have at the top, right? So let me just grab this, and then we are going to have the hover effect, and that is going to be a box shadow, 0 for the x-axis, 3 rem for the y-axis, 3 rem for the blur, and then we are going to have that primary light color. Okay, so color primary light. So let's see, and now we have that shadow effect. Okay, that box shadow effect with each of them. Nice. Now let's proceed to the icons. Okay, I want to have some styling for each of these icons, so let me proceed to that. Let me just copy this, paste it, and then we are targeting the icons, and the icons are inside a span. Okay, they are inside of a span. So for each of them I want to have a general styling for them before I select them individually. So for all of the icons I'm going to have a background of color primary. For now I'm going to give them a fixed width of 4 rem. The height is going to be 4 rem as well. Let me give them a margin 0 auto. Okay, so that they are horizontally centered. I'm going to display flex. You can see the icons are not well aligned inside of the span, right? So I'm going to display flex, align items to the center, and justify content to the center as well. and now they are well centered. Okay, we want our spans to be circle, so we are going to change the border radius. And let me change the color of the icons as well. So color should be the variable white color. Okay, and we have our icons. Now let's select them individually. So the first one is going to, let's see, the first one is going to keep the primary color. The second one is going to have this yellow color, which is color warning, and then this is going to have that green color. So let's select the second one. That is going to be the second service. So nth child is going to be 2, and the span. Okay, we are grabbing the span. Let's change the background to be the color warning. Okay, that is going to be the yellow color, and that color is here at the top. Okay, this is the color warning, and the third one, which is the last one, is going to be the color success. Okay, so let me scroll back down, paste it here. That is going to be the third service or the third item. Let me change the background to be the color success. And that is all for the services section. That is all for the services section. So I can click to go to the about section, the home, the skills section, and the services section as well. Okay, so now let's proceed to the portfolio section or our recent work. Okay, let's proceed to the portfolio section real quick. So let's move on to our portfolio section or our recent work. So that is going to be a section with a class of recent work and an ID of portfolio. Okay, so that we can just click on the navigation menu and then it will take us to this section. So we have that. We are going to have an h4. Okay, and that is going to say, let's have an h1 as well, and that is going to say, all right, so we are going to have all our recent work or our projects inside a div with a class of projects. Okay, plural projects, and each of the projects are going to be inside a div with a class of project that is singular. And inside each project we are going to have our thumbnail. Okay, just a picture of the project, so that is going to be a div with a class of thumbnail. We are going to have the title of the project, so that is going to be inside an h2. Let's say this is going to be complete responsive e-commerce website with Stripe checkout. Okay, with Stripe checkout or Stripe integration, whatever. This is going to be the title of the project, of your project. Next, we are going to have some description of the project. So let's do lorem 30. Okay, that is the description, and the last thing is going to be the action. Okay, so anyone on the website can click to see your code on GitHub, or it can take them to a live demo, right? So we are going to put that inside a div with a class of action, and we are going to have links. Okay, so the first one is going to go to GitHub, and that is going to open inside a new tab. So target blank. Let's duplicate this, and this would take us to a live demo. That would be a live demo of your project, so it could be anything. Let me just take that too. So we have our heading, our paragraph, and our actions. Right now, let's have the image as well. So it is going to be our image, so img, and this would be our first. Let's see, this is going to be our first project, so work 1. Let's just select that, and then that is all for a project. Okay, so I'm just Actually, this whole thing should be inside a container. Okay, so we should have a direct child of this section to be a container. Then let's drop this in. Okay, nice. So this is one project. Okay, this is one project. Let's see what we have. All right, so this is one project. Let me duplicate this project a few times and then change the markup real quick. Okay, so I'm just going to change the title of the project, the description, and then the images. Okay, so let me do that real quick. So we have our first project, second project, third, and fourth. Okay, so that is all we need for the markup for our portfolio section, right? Let's go back to our style sheet. First, let's see what we have. This is it. There's a project. So these are our projects. Okay, these are our individual projects. So let's get to the CSS and give this some styling. And the H1, I'm going to text align that to, let me show you. Let's put this side by side so that we see what is going on. This is the H1, right? I'm going to text align that to, let's say, the left. It should be left. Okay, so we text align that to left. We're going to give some margin. So margin top is going to be 3 rem. Actually, you know what, let me just remove this. Okay, so left and right is going to be 0, the top is going to be 3 rem, and then the bottom is going to be 1 rem. Okay, so we have some space. Let's give it a width of 65%. Okay, I don't want it to go all the way across, so it should be 65% of the web page. I'm going to display grid. So I'm going to do grid template columns. The grid template columns is going to be 1 FR and 1 FR. Okay, so they are going to be left and right. So we have them side by side. This first one, the second one, the third one, and then the fourth one, right? Let me give them some gap. Okay, let me have some space between them. So a gap of 3 rem. So we have some space between them. Now let's target the individual projects. Okay, so they have class of project that is singular. We are going to display flex. Let's change the flex direction to column. Let's give them some gap of 2 rem. Okay, so we have some spaces between them. Let's see. Now let me change the gap to 1 rem. Okay, the gap is too much. Let me change it to 1 rem. And I think the space is good enough. Now let's move on to the action. Okay, this is going to be the action area. We gave it a class of action. So let me copy this. We are going to display flex and then give them some gap. Okay, a gap of, let's say, 2 rem. Okay, so that we have some spaces between them. Now let's target the links. Okay, let's target the links and change the color of that. So the links inside of them, let's change the color to be the primary color. Okay, so color primary. And on hover we want to have some underline. Okay, so let me just copy this again. On hover I want to have the text decoration to be underlined. So we can click this and it will open a new tab and take us to our GitHub project. You would have to enter your GitHub, your actual project inside of the href, and this would take us to our live demo, okay, of the project. All right, so that is all for the recent work, okay, or the portfolio section. That is all for the portfolio section. So we can click and it will take us to that section. So now let's move on to our testimonial section. So let me quickly show you something real quick. So these are going to be our testimonials. Okay, so for every testimonial we are going to have a head that is going to contain the left side, which is going to have our image and then our info right here. And then inside the head, okay, we are going to have our stars as well. A sibling of the head is going to be this paragraph, okay, and we are going to have a couple of these testimonials. Okay, so let's go to our markup. So here we are going to have a section with a class of testimonials, sorry. And then inside of that we are going to have our h1, and then here we are going to have our container, and we are going to have our carousel. Okay, and that is going to have our various testimonials, okay, or our individual testimonials. So each testimonial is going to have a div with a class of testimonial, and inside of that, as I said, we are going to have our head and then our paragraph. Okay, our paragraph. Those are the two things we are going to have inside every testimonial. So inside our head, we are going to have the profile area. So I gave it a class of profile area, and that is going to have our avatar first. Let's have our image. So our avatar, we are going to, that is going to be an image. So let's see, that is going to be the first one. And next we are going to have our info, okay, and that is going to be a sibling of the avatar. So our info is going to have our name, which is going to be in an h4. That is the name. And then we are going to have a small tag here that is going to hold the description. Okay, so this person is a civil engineer, and this is the website we created for that person. Okay, so inside this head, okay, inside the head, we are actually going to have the stars. Okay, so these are going to be the stars, and the stars are going to be icons. So let me go to Google material icons and then search stars, or star. Actually, this should be star. Let's see, let's use this instead. I'm going to grab this span here, copy, and then paste it right here, and I'm going to duplicate this 4 times. They give us a 5-star. Okay, they give us a 5-star, so those are the 5 stars. Okay, and then lastly we are going to have our paragraph, and that is going to be the actual testimonial of the person. Let's do lorem 20. Okay, and this is the testimonial of the person. So this is all for a testimonial, and I'm going to duplicate this. Okay, I'm going to copy the testimonial and duplicate it a few times, okay, before we head to the CSS. So let me copy this testimonial and duplicate a few times, and I'm going to change the text content. Okay, I'm going to change the individual content here. I'm going to change this, the name, the description, and all that. I'm going to do that real quick. All right, so these are the testimonials. Okay, I've changed some of the contents. So these are the various testimonials that we have. This is the first one, and I increased the text. There's the second testimonial, and it goes on like that. All right, so let's check that in our browser. So this is what we have. Okay, let's see. This is what we have from the markup of the testimonial. These are the various testimonials. Okay, so let's go to our CSS and give this some styling. Let me put this side by side so that you see what goes on. Let's give our testimonial section a background of light. Okay, that is going to be the color light. The container is going to have a width, a fixed width of 44 rem. And then let's see, testimonials. Let's target the carousel. Okay, remember all these different testimonials, these individual testimonials are inside a div class of carousel, right? So for that, we are going to display flex. Let's align items to the center. Okay, so they are going to have a background of the white color. Let's give them a padding of 2 rem all around. Let's display flex. Come on, display flex. And let's change the flex direction to column. Okay, nice. That is what we have for each of the testimonials. Let's give them a gap. Okay, a gap of 1 rem. And I'm going to change the font size. Okay, I'm going to decrease the font size to 0.9 rem, and the margin bottom is going to be 2 rem as well. So that is our testimonials. Okay, now so let's move on to the head. Okay, the head section of each testimonial. So I'm just going to copy this, and then for the head we are going to display flex. Let's justify content to the center, or actually let's make this space between. Okay, let's justify content to be space between, and then I'm going to align items to start. You can make it flex start, it's the same thing basically. Actually, you know what, I'm going to make some changes here. Okay, so let me go back up. In this carousel section, I'm going to give a gap between the individual testimonials. So I'm going to give a gap of 1 rem, and then I'm going to change the flex direction, okay, to column. We are going to remove this later on, but for us to see clearly what is happening, we have to do it. Okay, so let's go back down and then get to the profile area, okay, which is this side. So let me copy this, paste it, and then we are going to the profile area. The profile area, we are going to have, let's give it a display of flex and a gap of 1 rem. This is the profile area. And then the avatar, okay, the image, the div that has the image, the div that contains the image, that is the avatar. With the avatar, we are going to give it a fixed width of 3 rem, and that is going to be the same for the height, 3 rem as well. So we have that. Let's change the border radius to 50%, and let's set overflow to heading. So that is for that section. That is the profile area section. Now let's move on to the stars. Okay, so let me copy from here, and then let's target the stars. The star section, I'm just going to change the color primary. Okay, the stars themselves are inside of a span, so I'm just going to change the font size to 1.2 rem, and they are reduced. Okay, so these are the individual testimonials. Let's see, where's the carousel? I'm going to remove this gap. Okay, let's see, change the display. They look pretty ugly. That is because I removed the flex direction, but we are going to correct this. Okay, we are going to use Swiper JS. Now to have this slide or swipe effect, we are going to use Swiper JS. So let's search that in Google. So Swiper JS, and this is free. Okay, there's a free tool that you can use or service that you can use. Okay, so we can see some demos of these swipes. Okay, so they have some demo here, different slides that you can use, and we are going to use let's see, we are going to use this one. Okay, and that is the scroll bar one. Okay, so that is what we are going to use. Let me go back.
Okay, and I'm going to click get started. Okay, I'm going to open that in a new tab, and I'm going to use the CDN. So for the CDN, I'm going to grab this link and then paste that. That is the CSS. Okay, I'm going to paste that inside of my markup, my HTML file. I'm going to paste that here. Let me leave comment. That is Swiper JS, and I'm going to link the JavaScript as well. Okay, so I'm just going to copy the minified version. Where is it? Okay, so there's the JavaScript. I'm going to copy that and then paste it at the bottom of the markup. We have the script already. Now let's link our custom JS, okay, our custom JavaScript file. So script, that is main.js, okay, that is our custom JavaScript file. Let me leave a comment here. Swiper, come on, Swiper JS, okay.
Now let me explain some classes that I've added. Okay, so every individual testimonial is going to have a class of swiper slide. Okay, so let me show you that. So in this example, you see these are the slides. Okay, these are the individual slides, and they should have the swiper slide class. Okay, now the direct parent of these is going to have a swiper wrapper class, and then the parent of this as well is going to have a swiper class. Okay, so let me show you that. So the individual testimonials are going to have the swiper slide class. The parent of that is going to have the swiper wrapper, and then the parent of this as well is going to have that swiper class. Okay,
Okay, so we have our Swiper JS linked. Now let me show you something real quick. Okay, so for you to have the swipes, let me go to an example here. Let me go to APIs. I'm going to use the scroll bar. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this and then paste it inside of my main.js. Okay, my JavaScript file. Let me leave a comment here as well. And let's see what we have. And nothing has changed. Okay, we have our scroll bar, but nothing has really changed. Okay, so and that scroll bar is this. Okay, this scroll bar here. So a div with a class of swipe past scroll bar, and then inside of it we are going to have a child div with a class of swipe past scroll bar drag. Okay, so do that if you didn't see that earlier. Okay, if I didn't show you that earlier, so add that scroll bar. Now let's go to our CSS, and then let's see, let's go down, and here I'm going to remove this flex direction. Okay, I'm going to remove that flex direction. So just like that, we have our Swiper JS implemented. So it is very easy. Swiper JS is very simple to implement. So that is all for the testimonial section. Okay, that is all you have to do for the testimonial section. All right, so now we are done with the testimonial section. Let's move on to the contact section. Okay, let's move on to our contact section.
okay, so we are going to have an ID of contact as well. Okay, so a class of contact and an ID of contact for the contact section. Now we are going to have a div with a class of overlay. Okay, that is going to be our black translucent background. Let me show you. That's going to be the black or the translucent black on top of this image. Okay, so that is the overlay we have, and then we are going to have our container class. Now let's have our h1, and that is going to say let's talk, and then we are going to have our paragraph. Okay, so p, let's say lorem 15, Now let's move on to the form. Okay, so we are going to have our form. We are not going to have an action for now. We are going to do that in a minute. First, we are going to have our name. Let's see, from the finished project, we are going to have name, email, subject, and then message. Okay, and then finally we are going to have our submit button. So we are going to have an input, and this is going to be text. Let's have a name of name, and we should have this name. Okay, we should have this name keyword with the value. Okay, that is because when we receive an email from our website, we want to make sure to know the field. Okay, the field that this is coming from. Okay, so the name is going to be name, the placeholder is going to be name as well, and then let's say required. Okay, let's use the required keyword to have some client-side validation, and this will make sure there is a value inside of the field, okay, for the form to be able to be submitted. Okay, so next we are going to have our email. So the type is going to be email, the name is going to be email, and then the placeholder is going to be email as well. This is also going to be required. Now the next one is going to be subject, right? And that is going to be a type of text. The name is going to be subject, and then placeholder is going to be subject as well. This should also be required. And then lastly, we are going to have our text area. There is going to be message for the name. We are going to have no ID. Okay, these rows and columns, we are going to remove that, and then the placeholder is going to be message. This should also be required. Now let's have our input with a type of submit. Placeholder, no, this is not going to be placeholder. Let's set the value to submit. Okay, and that is our button. So for it to be a button, let's give it a class of the btn and btn primary. Okay, and that should give us our button. Let's see what we have. Okay, so this is our contact form right here. Let's go to the CSS and then give this some styling. Now the background for the contact section is going to be an image. So background is going to be an image. Okay, so let's go to our images folder, and that is going to be, let's see, background image, no repeat, center, center, cover. Okay, all right, let's see, let me actually put this side by side. So that is our image. I'm going to set the padding to 0, and then the maximum width is going to be 100 viewport width. So that is our image. Now let's move on to the overlay. Okay, remember we had a div with a class of overlay. We are going to set the width of that to 100%. The height is going to be 100% as well, and then the background as I said is going to be black with some transparency, so 0 0 0 and then 0.8. Did I do something wrong here? Okay, so this should be overlay. Okay, and we have it. And I think it's too dark. I think the overlay is too dark, so I'm going to change this alpha value to 0.7. And this should be okay. I'm going to give it a pattern of 10 rem for the top, 0 for the left and right, and then 7 rem for the bottom. Okay, so that is our overlay. Let's move on to the container section, contact. Let's give it a width of 40%. That is our container. Now let's move on to our h1. Okay, we have an h1 here. Let's move on to that. Let me copy this, paste it here, and then target the h1. The h1 is going to have no margin, and then the color is going to be white, so color white. We have that. Let's move on to the paragraph. target the paragraph. Text align should be center. We're going to change the color to white as well, so variable color white. Okay, so that is our paragraph. Let me make it a little transparent. So let's see the opacity, let's set that to 0.8. Okay, let's move on and give it a margin top of 0.5 rem. Okay, so there is some space between that and then the heading there. Now let's move on to the form. Okay, let's move on to the form. So section, contact, and then the form. The form is going to have a margin top of 3 rem. Let's move on to the form inputs. Okay, so the name, email, and all that. Let's move on to that. The form input. So we are going to target the input and then the text area as well. Okay, so let me grab this, and then this is going to be the text area. The text area is going to be the message box, this box. So for every input, we are going to display block. They are all going to have a width of 100%, margin 0.5 rem for the top and bottom, and then 0 for the left and right. Let's give them a padding of 1.6 rem. Border is going to be 1 pixel solid, color white. Okay, so we have that. Let's move on and give the background a transparency. Okay, we want the background to be transparent. And then set some transition. Okay, we are going to have some slight effects on focus. So the transition is going to be our transition value, or our transition variable rather. Now on focus, okay, whenever we click inside of any of these inputs, I want the background. Okay, I want the background of the input to be white. Okay, so color white. And I want the text, so the color should be black. Okay, so color black. So that is for our focus state. Okay, and then let's see, I want to change the color of the placeholders as well. They are not very visible, so let me just grab this, paste it here, and then let me change the placeholder. So that is going to be 2 colons and then the placeholder. Let's just change the color to color white, and now we have our placeholders white. Okay, so they are very visible now. Let's work on this submit button. Okay, I don't want it to be the same as these inputs, so let's target that. So let me copy this, paste it here, and then target the btn. Okay, let me give it a width. Let's go down. Let me give it a width of 14 rem. Okay, let me give it a border of none. Let's give it a background of the color white. Let's see what we did here. I'm going to give it a background of color white as we have it in the finished project, color white. Let's change the color to color black, and I'm going to give it a margin. Okay, a margin of 2 rem for the top, auto for the left and right, and then 0 for the bottom. Okay, so we have some margin, and let's see, we have no hover effects here. We have some box shadow, but that is not enough. I'm going to set some transition. Okay, actually we have the transition already, so let me just copy this, and then on hover we want to change the background. Okay, the background should be the color primary. Okay, should be this orange color. I want to change the cursor to pointer, and the color, okay, the text color inside of it should be color white. And we have our contact form done. Okay, but I want this text area to be a little longer. Okay, it should have enough space for the message. So let me see, let me target that. The text area is going to have a height of 10 rem, so that we have some difference between that and then the other inputs. All right, and I think we are done with our contact form. Okay, we are done with the design. Now let's proceed to implementing FORMSPREE. Okay, so to be able to receive messages from this form in your Gmail or any of your emails, we are going to use a service called FORMSPREE. Okay, so FORMSPREE, let's click this first link. You are going to click get started, but I already have an account, so I'm going to sign in. And then let's create our form. Let's enter our email. So this is my dummy email for tutorials. Okay, so I'm going to enter my email, the name of the form. Let's name our form. Let's say this is contact form. You can name it whatever you want. The project name is personal portfolio website. Okay, so we have our form created. But first, let's go to settings. Okay, so if you don't see your email here, you can click account page and then enter your email. Okay, or you can just enter your email here and then click save right here. But we want to have Google reCAPTCHA. Okay, we want to enable Google reCAPTCHA. So whenever they fill the form, they click submit, they are first going to use the Google reCAPTCHA before the form will be submitted into our email. But after you enter your email, you are going to receive a verification email, and they are just going to make sure the email belongs to you. So you verify your email and then let's proceed. So let's come back to integration, and then we are going to copy this. Okay, we are going to copy this link. This is going to be our action. Let's go back to our HTML, and then we are going to paste in our action right here. So action, and then let's paste in that link that we copied. Okay, we should make sure our method is post. Okay, so we should have these two inside of our form. Okay, so after we link this or after we enter this, we should be able to receive every message from here in our email. Okay, so let's just get to the website. Let's go back to the website and then let's test this out. So let's enter our name, our email, our subject, and then our message. Okay, so our message, let me just copy something real quick. Let me just copy anything here in this text and then paste it in. This is just a test, and then let's submit. Okay, let's submit this. Oh, we did not enable our Google reCAPTCHA. Let's go back to the settings and then let's see. So let's enable Google reCAPTCHA. Okay, let's enable this and then go back. Okay, go back. So we should actually receive the message. We should see the message. So the message is here. Okay, but we want to enable the Google reCAPTCHA so that we have some protection. So let's go back and then test it out. And now we have to pass this. and we should receive another message. Okay, we have another message right here. All right, so in the message we have the name we entered, the email, we have the subject, and then our message. Okay, so this is the message we copied from that page. Okay, so this is the message, and that is how you implement FORMSPREE, or you integrate FORMSPREE inside of your website so that you can receive messages from the website. Okay, so let's go back to the website. Okay, so we are done with our contact. Okay, we are done with our contact section. Now the last section is going to be the footer. Okay, we are going to have our footer section, and then we will move on to the media query. Okay, now let's proceed to our footer. Okay, so this is the end of the contact. Let me leave a comment. Okay, so inside that, let me give a container. We are going to have everything inside a container, and outside the container we are going to have that copyright thing. Okay, so copyright whatever that we are going to put inside of that. So we are going to have a div with a class of copyright. Okay, we are going to get to that in a minute. So inside of the container we are going to have our logo, so and that is going to go to the top of the page. Let's have our logo inside an h3. That is our logo. We are going to have an added list for the permalinks. So let me go to the top, let me go to the nav section and just copy this. Just going to copy this, get back down, and then paste it inside of here. Okay, that should be inside a UL. Paste that here. Okay, let me remove this active class. So we have home, about, skills, and all that. Now the last thing we are going to have is our socials. Okay, we are going to have our social media links. So that is inside of the, let's see, that is inside here. Where is it? Okay, so let me copy this. So we're there with a class of socials with our social media links, and then paste that here as well. Okay, so the last thing we are going to have is the copyright. So the copyright, so we're there with a class of copyright, and it is going to say copyright and the copyright sign, that is copy. Okay, so that is all for our footer. Now let's get back to our CSS and give this some styling. So let's quickly style this footer section. Let's give it a padding top of 5 rem. Let's get to the container, that is the direct child. Let display flex. Okay, let me put this side by side so that you see the footer. So this is the footer, right? I'm going to display flex, align items to the center, and I'm going to justify content to be spaced between. Nice. Now let's move to the UL. Okay, this on added list. Let me just copy this, paste it. The UL is going to be displayed flex as well, and then I'm going to give a gap between the items of 3 rem. Okay, so we have this. Now let's move to the links. Okay, the individual links inside of the UL, the anchor tags. I'm going to change the color to be color dark, and then on hover. Okay, so on hover I'm going to change the color to, come on, color primary. Okay, and I want to have some transition, So that is going to be the variable transition. Okay, now let's move on to the socials section. Okay, let's display flex on that and then give some styling to the links. Let's see, so let me copy from here, paste that, then the socials. I'm going to display flex, give it a gap of 2 rem, so we have some decent space. Let me get to the links. So footer, container, socials. Let's give them a background of color light. Background. Let's give them a padding of 0.3 rem, and then border radius of 50%. Now let's move on to give them some hover effect. Okay, so I'm first going to have some transition. So on hover, I want the background to change. Color primary. So we have that. Now let's change the icons as well. The color of the icons, color white. Okay, nice. So that is for the hover. Now let's move on to the copyright section. Okay, this section that is outside of the container. So when we gave it a class of copyright, we gave it a class of copyright. So let's style that. So the copyright section is going to have a background of the primary, and then let's give it a color of white. Text, align everything to the center. Let's give it a margin top of 5 rem, and then a padding of 2 rem for the top and bottom, and then 0 for the left and right. Okay, so that is what we have. Let's change the font size to 0.8 rem. All right, perfect. So that is all for the desktop version of this project. Okay, that is all for the desktop version. So next we are going to move on to the media queries. And then after the media queries, after we have the mobile version, we move on to the JavaScript. Okay, so let me leave a comment here. All right, so at media screen and max width, and for phones I'm going to do 600 pixels. Okay, so let me actually just see the breakpoint. So I'm going to change the body background to red. So that is the breakpoint. Okay, so this is exactly the breakpoint for phones. Okay, so here down. Okay, that is going to be for phones. All right, so on phones or on smaller screens, I'm going to change the headings. Okay, so H1, I'm going to change the font size to 2.2 rem. H2, font size of 1.6 rem. H3, font size of 1.2 rem. H4, font size of 1 rem. Then H5, font size of 1 or 0.68 rem. Okay, that is for H5. So those are just the general styles. Now let's move on to the nav. Okay, the navigation. On mobile, we want it to look like this. Okay, this is the finished project. So on mobile, we want our project to look like that. Now let me leave a comment here. So on mobile, I want the nav H3, which is the logo. I want it to have a margin left of 1 rem, and you are going to understand that real soon. Let me actually, you know what, let me give the nav a box shadow. Okay, so a box shadow of 0 on the x-axis, 1 rem on the y-axis, 1 rem for the blur, and I'm going to change this later on. Okay, so let me do box, oh come on, box shadow. I'm going to change this, but just to see everything clearly. Let's move on to the nav container. So the nav container, you know, we have a direct div with a class of container inside the nav, the width of 100%. So that is why we give this h3 a margin left, so that it doesn't stick to the left. Now let's proceed to the UL. Okay, so the unadded list, we are going to make that a sidebar. So let's proceed to that. So now UL, let's position that fixed. Let's give it a top of 0. Let's give it a flex direction. We already displayed it flex, so we are going to change the flex direction to column. Make the z index 3 so that it's always at the top of everything on the page. Let's give it a fixed width of 16 rem, height of 100 viewport height, and then let's give it a background. It's going to have that white background also, so color white. Okay, so that is the UL. Let's proceed. Let's continue. Let's give it a box shadow. Let's give it a box shadow of 1 rem on the x-axis, 0 rem or 0 on the y-axis, 2 rem for the blur, and then let's give it that light primary color. Now we are going to display this none, okay, but that is going to be after we are done styling everything. So let's proceed to the LIs, okay, the list items inside of the UL. So nav UL li, let's give it a height 1.6 rem. So everything inside of this is going to have a height of 4.6 rem. Our links inside of the items, okay, so all our links are going to have a width of 100%. Justify content to the start, and then let's give them a padding left of 2 rem. Okay, nice. Now let's move on to give them some hover effects. Okay, so just going to give them some cool hover effects. I'm going to set the padding on hover, the padding left to 3 rem. Okay, so on hover we are going to have some shift effect, this movement. Okay, I want to show the buttons. Okay, the buttons inside of the nav, I'm going to display inline block. I'm going to set the cursor to be pointer. The background is going to be transparent. Okay, so we have our buttons. The color is going to be, I'm going to change the color to color black, and then a margin right of 1 rem, so that is pushed from the right side a little bit. So this close icon, we are going to display none for now. Okay, by default we are only going to show this. Okay, so inside of JavaScript we are going to create an event where when we click this when we click this, we are going to display it none and then show the other icon. So when we click this icon as well, then we are going to, let me show you from here. So here in the finished project, you see by default, let me refresh the page. By default we only have this, so when we click it we are going to display it none and then show the other icon, and when we click this icon as well, we are going to display it none and then show the hamburger icon. Okay, so that is how we are going to toggle it. So let's get back to our actual project, and I'm going to select the close icon. I think we gave it an ID of close. Let's go back and then see, let's confirm that. So right here we give it, I think we give it, okay, so let's give it an ID. Okay, let's give it, this first one is going to have an ID of menu. Let's say menu btn. Okay, btn, and then this one is going to have an ID of close btn. Okay, so let's get back to the CSS. So this is going to be close btn. Let's display none for now. Okay, so we are only going to have, let's see, let me save this and then save this as well. Okay, this should actually be, let me see, this should actually be on the button. Okay, we should have the ID inside of the button. Let's remove this and then place it inside of the button. All right, so that is it. So now we only have our menu. Okay, we only have our menu icon. So now we are done with the nav section. Okay, so I'm going to display none on this sidebar or on this menu. I'm going to display none for now. We are going to use JavaScript to actually show this. So section with a class of landing, margin top of -4 rem. Okay, I want it to be pushed to the top. Let's see. Okay, so it's at the top a little bit. Let's give it a padding bottom of 7 rem. I'm going to give it a maximum width of 100 viewport width and set the overflow X to hidden. All right, so that is that. Now let's move on to the container inside of the landing section. I'm going to change the grade template columns to 1FR. So we have this. Now this time I'm going to set a grade template rows, and that is going to be 20%, then 50%. Okay, I'm going to move this animation. I'm going to move this animation to the top. So first of all, let me remove the socials. That should be inside of this. So the socials, I'm going to display none on that. Now I'm going to target the info section. So let me just copy this and then the info. Okay, the info section, I'm going to give that a width of 90% and then a margin of 0 auto. Okay, I want it to be in the middle. Now let's move to, actually, you know what's inside of the container? I want to text align everything to the center and then give a row gap of 2 rem. Actually, let me make that 6 rem. Okay, 6 rem should be enough. So I have my text aligned, centered, and then I have some row gap. Now this animation is going to come at the top here. Okay, so let me see, but then let me style these headings here. So the H1, I'm going to text align that to the center, and then the paragraph, let's see, let me grab the paragraph inside of the info. I'm going to give it a margin of 0 auto and then set the width to 92%. All right, so that is what we have for the info section. Now let's move on to the profile area, which has this animation. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it here, and then the profile area. Okay, so for the profile area, let me change the grid row. Okay, I want it to be at the top before this info. So the grade row is going to be 1, and that should put it right at the top here. I'm going to give it a width of 94% and the margin is going to be 0 auto. 0 auto for the margin. Now let's move on to the outer circle. Okay, this animating circle with the border. Let's move on to that. So I'm going to give that a width of 16 rem and a height of 16 rem as well. Nice. Let's see. And now our image is on top of it, right? So let me give that a width of 10 rem and a height of 10 rem as well. Container, inner circle. And what is wrong? Let's see. Let's change the spans. So the outer circle spans, I'm going to give them a width of 3 rem and a height of 3 rem as well. And that should make them smaller, but they are not exactly centered on the line. Okay, they are not exactly centered on the line, so I'm just going to grab them individually. I'm going to grab each one of them. So let's see, the first one, just going to change. You know what, let me just go up top. Okay, let me go to the desktop version and then grab all these. Okay, I'm going to grab these, come down here, paste it here. And for this first one, you know, we've changed our width from 4 rem. Okay, so at the top here it is 4 rem. Let's see, so the span here, the width is 4 rem, the height is 4 rem as well, right? But on mobile we are changing the width and the height to 3 rem. Okay, so here we have to subtract 1.5. okay, that is half of this. Okay, so we have to do that for each one of these. So I'm just going to select all of them. 1.5 rem. Okay, and they should be exactly on the line. Okay, on the outer circle. Now let's move on to the about section. Let's move on to the about section. So let me leave a comment, and that is going to be very simple. For the about section, let me grab the container, and then I'm going to change the grid templates columns to 1FR. Let's move to the about section, and we have our grid templates columns changed to 1FR. Now let me reduce the gap, and the gap is this gap right here. I'm going to make that 1 rem, and then I'm going to change the text align to center, so they are text aligned to the center. Let's move on to the scales section. This is going to be the scales, that is section with a class of scales. I'm going to target the container. Okay, and I'm going to change the width to 94%, and that is all we have to do for the scales section. Let's move on to the services section. So there's going to be services section with a class of services. For the services section, I'm just going to change the grid template columns to 1FR as well. And this is the power of grid CSS. Okay, this is the power of grid CSS. Now let's move on to recent work, or the portfolio section. And that was a section with a class of recent work. Okay, so this is the portfolio section, our recent work. I'm going to change the grid template columns to 1FR as well. No, that should be the container. So let me target the container. Change the grid template columns to what is wrong here? Let's see, let me go back to the markup and see if that is the name of the class I used. So this is services recent work. Oh, you know what, let's get the project. Okay, let's grab this. So I'm going to grab the projects. Okay, so that does the magic. Actually, I'm going to go back up top and then change every container to have a width of 94%. Okay, I don't like this large or huge margin that we have here, so I'm just going to go back to the top where we have our general classes, and I'm going to give every container a width of 94%. All right, so we have everything perfectly how it should be. Now let me target this h1 and give that some styling. So let's see, from the container I'm going to copy this and paste that here and target the h1. Okay, the h1, I'm going to give that a width of 94 viewport width. Let me give it a margin of 1.4 rem, 0 and then 1 rem. Now let's move on to the testimonial section. Okay, so that is the testimonials section. So section with a class of testimonials. Let me actually target the container, and this is the testimonial section. A width of 94 viewport width. Okay, so that is for our testimonial section. Nice. Now let's move on to the contact form. Okay, the contact form is going to be pretty simple as well. Actually, let me check something real quick. Let me change the sizes of these stars. Okay, so the container testimonial, every testimonial head stars, the span inside of it, so that is the stars, I'm going to give them a font size of 0.8 rem. I want them to be smaller. Okay, so that is all for the testimonial. Let's come back to the contact section. The contact section, let me grab that. So section with a class of contacts. Let me grab the container. So this is the contact section. I'm just going to increase the width of the container to 94 viewport width. Let me grab this paragraph as well. So the paragraph inside, let me give that a width and a margin 0 auto. Okay, yes, so we have that. You know what, let me actually push this down a little bit. So margin of 1 rem for the top, auto for the left and right, and then 0 for the bottom. Okay, let me reduce this to 0.5 rem. Okay, so that is that for the contact section. Now let's move on to the last section of the page, and that is going to be the footer section. Let me grab the container. Let's get to the footer section. There's the footer section. Remember, we displayed it flex, so we are going to change the flex direction to column. So that is what we have, and change the gap to 3 rem. Now let's target the UL. Okay, the unadded list. We are going to change the flex direction to column as well. I'm going to text align everything to the center, and then the gap, okay, the gap between them is only going to be 1.4 rem. Okay, so that is all for the footer section. How beautiful is this? Gorgeous. So that is all, or this is all for the HTML and then CSS. Okay, so the next thing we are going to do is the JavaScript. Okay, so let's move on to the JavaScript. So the first thing we want to do is to click this and then show our sidebar, okay, or our navigation menu. So we are going to grab this, we are going to grab the close icon as well, and we are going to grab the navigation menu. Okay, so here const, let me first grab this menu. So menu btn document.query selector, and we give it an ID of menu btn, right? Let's get the close icon as well. Close btn document dot query selector, and that is going to be close btn. Okay, now lastly, let's grab the sidebar, okay, or the menu items. Document dot query selector, and that is inside our nav container, and that is the UL. That is what we are getting, our unadded list. So we are going to put an event listener on this, okay? That is the menu button. We are going to put an event listener on that. So we're going to add an event listener, and that is going to be a click event. And here all we are going to do is to show the menu, okay, the sidebar, and that is what we are going to do. So we are going to take the style and then display. We are going to set the display to block. We've displayed it none, that is why it is not showing. So when we click this, it shows show, okay. So let's click, and we have our sidebar. On click of this, I'm going to remove that icon. So I'm going to set the display. So the menu btn, which is this, should be displayed none, okay. So let's try that again. Okay, so our menu button disappears, our menu actually shows, and then we have our close icon or the close button here. Okay, so how can we close it? We have to add an event listener. Right now we can't close it, so we have to add an event listener on the close button. So here I'm going to add an event listener, which is going to be the same click event. So here I'm just going to copy this and then change. When we click this, I want the menu, which is this, I want that to disappear, so it's going to be displayed none. I want the button, the menu button, to be displayed inline block, and I want this close button to disappear. Okay, so that is going to be displayed none, and that is all we need to show and hide our menu. Okay, so let me leave a comment here, and this is going to be show menu. So let me click, the menu shows, I click, and then it is hidden, so we can show and hide our sidebar. Okay, so that is for showing and hiding of the sidebar. Now let me show you something real quick. Okay, let's get to the full page or the desktop view. When I click this about, it takes us to the about section, but this about link or the nav item doesn't have the active class. Okay, so when we click the scales, it should have the active class. Anything that we click should have the active class. So let's go to our JavaScript again. All right, so here I'm going to select all the LIs or the nav items, and they are inside of the menu. Okay, so I'm just going to say menu. Let me call this nav items. Okay, so these are our nav items, and I'm going to use the for each loop to loop through this. So for each item, I'm going to get the link inside of it. Okay, so let me call this link, and that is going to be item query selector and then the link. Okay, each of these item has a link inside of it. Let me show you inside of the markup. So this is our navigation, and we have our UL. Okay, this is the menu, and inside of it we have our items, and then inside every item we have the link. Okay, so that is what we are grabbing here. So we are going to add an event listener, and that is going to be a click event. So when we click, what do we want to do? We want to add the active class, right? So link, class list, and I'm going to add the active class. By default, we have the active class on the home. Okay, so right now with this code, when I click, I should get the active class on anyone. Okay, anything that I click, it should have the active class. So we want to be able to remove the active class from any other class. Okay, so when we click this about, the active class for all the other elements should be removed. Okay, it should be only on the item that we click. So let's go back and then let's call that change active item, and that is going to be an arrow function. And all we are going to do is select the nav items, and for each of them get the link as well. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this and then paste it in here. I'm going to get the link and then remove the active class. Okay, so when we click this, I'm going to call this function, which is going to remove all the active class from all the elements. So that is what I'm doing here. So I'm just going to call this function here. Okay, so let's try that. So we are at the about section. We can click to go to the portfolio section, and notice only the portfolio section is active. You can go to the contact section, back to the about section, the skills section, and all of that. Okay, so we are going to select this link and then the hidden description, and then grab the button. Okay, so const read more btn, documents.query selector. We named it read more. Okay, we gave it a class of read more. Let me show you real quick. So let's go to the about section. Okay, so this is the link. Okay, this is the link that we will click, and this is going to be the heading content. Okay, so we give that a class of read more content, and this is displayed none. Okay, so let me show you that inside of the CSS. Let's go to the about section. This is it. Okay, we've displayed none here. Read more content, document, query selector, and then put in the class. So first we want to click on this link. So we are going to add an event listener, and that is going to be a click event, and then we are going to call this anonymous function. So we are going to grab this, that is the content, and then we are going to a class. Okay, so let me go back to the style sheets. I'm going to call the class show content, and I'm going to display block. So let me leave a comment here. So when we click that link, when we click the link, we are going to toggle this class right here. Okay, so on click, we are going to toggle the class list. So class list dot toggle, and the name of the class is show content, right? So let's see, let's try that. Let's click, and we have it. Okay, but when we click, okay, when we click to show more, we want to change the content of this link, okay, to say show less. Okay, so let's go back to the JavaScript, and let's have some if statements here. So if the read more content class list contains the show content, okay, the show content class, then we want the read more btn or the read more link to have a text content show less. Okay, so let's try that. We click, and then we have show less. We click again. Okay, so let's have an else as well. Okay, so else Then we want to change it back to show more, else it should be show more. Let's try that again. So we click to show more, we can click to show less as well. So that is all for our about section. Now for this skills session, each of these is a div with a class of item, okay, and they are all wrapped inside another div with a class of items. Here is a head, a div with a class of head. This here is a div with a class of head as well, and these are divs with the class of item, okay, and they are all also wrapped inside the parent div with a class of items, plural. So each of these is a div with a class of item, which is singular, and they are wrapped inside a parent div with a class of items. So let me show you that inside of the HTML. So inside our skills, we have our container, we have our scale, okay, and each scale has a head, a div with a class of head, and an items, okay, a div with a class of items, and inside the items we have a div with a class of item, which are these, okay. So this an item, this an item, this an item, and all that. So we are going to hop back to our JavaScript. Let me put this side by side. Okay, so first of all, let me leave a comment. Show or hide scales item, okay, and let's grab the scale items. So scale items, and that is going to be document dot query selector all. Let's go to the section scales and then grab each scale, okay, each scale. Now we are going to use the for each loop, and we are going to use this anonymous function. So for each scale, we are going to grab the head. So this is going to be the head, there's the head, there's another head, and so on. So we are going to grab the head. So query selector, and then grab the head. Now we are going to add an event listener on the head, okay, so that is going to be a click event. So on click, we are going to run this anonymous function to grab the item inside of it, okay. So the div with a class of items, and we are going to toggle the class list, okay. But first of all, you know what, I'm going to display none on the items, okay. So let me go back here, and then let me grab this and display none on the parent, okay. So I'm going to display none. All right, so let's see, this is what we have, and I think I made a mistake and I corrected it off camera. So let me show you that. That was with this, okay. I think I made a typo here, so I corrected it. So items, show item, okay, show items, and that is going to be displayed block. So basically this is the class that we are going to toggle, okay. So when we click, we should display block on the items, and when we click again, it should be displayed none, and that's because by default we have it displayed none already, okay. So we are going to toggle that class. So class list show items, okay, that is the class we just created. All right, so let's try that out. Oh, this should be items, my bad. So let's try that. We click. Oh, this should be scale, okay. Oh, I made a typo here, okay. So this should be scales. God, sorry for that, guys. So let's try that, and we have our toggle, okay. We have our toggle. All right, so we are almost done, right? But now I want to remove this box shadow, okay, on the navbar. So I don't want that. I want to have it only on scroll, okay, only when we are scrolling. So let me go to, then I'm going to go to the JavaScript. So window, I'm going to add an event list now on the window. That is going to be a scroll event, and I'm going to call this anonymous function, and I'm going to select our navbar, okay, and that is inside a tag of nav, and we are going to toggle this class, okay. So class list dot toggle show box shadow when we scroll, okay. So if it is at the top, exactly at the top here, we are just going to have this thin border, okay, but when we scroll, we want to have that box shadow. So I'm going to grab this class right here and then go to the CSS, box shadow 0.6 rem, 1 rem for the blur, and then it's going to be the light primary color, okay. So let me show you that. As soon as I scroll, you see we have that box shadow. Let me remove the border. So as soon as I scroll, we get that box shadow. You can change this value to, let's say, 100. So for that, we have to scroll 100 pixels from the top so that we can see the box shadow. All right, but I want it to be 0. All right, so the last thing we are going to do is to customize the scroll bar. We are going to customize the scroll bar, so that is going to be inside of our CSS. Let's go to the top here. So WebKit scroll bar, the width, I'm going to make that 10 pixels, and then I'm going to change the color, okay. The background color is going to be color primary light, okay. Let's see, background WebKit. Oh, let's have our hyphen, okay. So we have that light color there, and I'm also going to style the thumb, okay, the scroll bar thumb. Let's give that a background of the primary color. All right, so that is all we need to customize our scroll bar. So now let's proceed to putting it on the internet, okay. Let's deploy our website. So now that we are done with creating our website, let's proceed to uploading it on the internet, okay. Let's proceed to deploying our website. So here in my project folder, I'm going to create a zip file of these, okay. So first, let me create a new folder, and I'm going to copy our files and then the images folder as well. I'm going to copy and then paste it inside the new folder I just created, and I'm going to zip this file, okay. I'm going to compress this file, and this is the file we are going to upload to our server, okay. This is the zip file we are going to upload. So now let's go back to our H panel, our Hostinger H panel. Let's go to manage. Let's scroll down to file manager and then click on that. Let's select our domain or our website's name. You should have a public HTML folder here, okay. If you don't have that, you can just create a new one and then name it public HTML. So let's get into that. let's go into our public HTML file, and here is where we are going to upload our files, okay, our zip file. So I'm going to upload, select the file, select the zip file, and then I'm going to click upload. All right, so now I'm going to extract this file. I'm going to click extract, and I'm going to extract it inside the current folder. So this should be dot, and then I'm going to click extract. And now our extraction is done. I'm going to go into the folder, copy all these files, and then I'm going to move them back into the public HTML folder. Okay, so I'm going to move them back there. Now let me come back here, and then I'm going to select the public HTML folder. Let's go back to the public HTML folder and delete the folder we extracted, and then the zip file as well. And now our files here should be exactly the same as we created before. Okay, so now this is our website. Okay, this is our website files. Let's check out the website. And now our website is live.